Hi, everybody. I'm Tamara Zoner.
And I'm John Davis.
Welcome to Spirit Cafe.
Come in, sit down, and
grab a cup of love.
A Spirituality Without the Guilt podcast. Hey, guys, it's John Davis, and my co-host is very much now inhibited about her dancing. I can see her going, I'm like, okay, I shouldn't dance because you might have a blooper reel or something. And so I no longer get to have the good dance anymore, which is kind of sad for me if you really think about it. we're gonna have some fun today, and so let me bring in my compatriot of compassion, the lovely Tamara Zoner. Good morning, Tamara Zoner. You anti-dancer, you.
Good morning, John. No, I'm just a little more subdued. The coffee hasn't quite kicked in. It was a gentle yoga practice this morning, so it was a more chill dance now.
All right, you're forgiven, but I really look forward
against the wall, enjoying the music, but having a rest dance move.
I really look forward to my opening show that I get. So
one day we'll have to do Spirit Cafe like live on stage, and
then
we'll get up and we'll dance to that jazzy
little. You will. I'll sit there and drink coffee.
Oh, John, dance with me.
I am not a dancer, but anyway, we are talking about life purpose today, and that was a suggestion from the lovely Tamara Zoner herself, and I think it's a brilliant one. So, since it was your suggestion, why don't you lead us off on the topic?
Sure. I thought of this actually last week as I was doing a little, 5-minute video on my own channel. And I thought, gosh, we haven't talked about life purpose, which is such a part of spirituality. And I thought it would be fun for us to talk about our own perspectives on life purpose, because I think especially in the early 2000s, finding your purpose went really big in personal growth and development, right? And everyone was like, oh my gosh, I have to find my purpose. I must know what it is. And I'm like, hey, chill out, people. Right. And I'm one who teaches the passion test, which is like, find your purpose. But what your purpose is, in my opinion, is really simply to live a joyful, fulfilling, and meaningful life. And it is as simple as that.
God bless you, woman, because you and I are very much on the same page on that. It's interesting. I think it's a life purpose is actually two-pronged. And I remember back in that era you were just speaking of so long ago, the 2000s, right? Right. I remember the big question was, what is your why? And what is your why? What is your why? I kept asking that question. I think it's two-pronged. I think there's a larger spiritual purpose for us being here and experiencing. But I also think each individual has to have their physical life purpose, something to give them momentum. But the two are not mutually exclusive. On a larger spiritual scale, I believe our purpose in being here is to, very much like you just said, live enjoying, loving life and experience that. And I think the biggest purpose is to come here to experience our fears so that we can now experience that loving, joyful life. We have to go through our processes so that we can know what that feels like. On the other side of this, on the very physical world plane, we need to find the things that do that for us. What are the things we love? What are the things we enjoy? What are the things that get us out of bed in the morning? For me, the thing that gets me out of bed every morning is I'm pushed really hard to help people break out of their fears. And that's what I do. That's when I look at what I do for a living now, because it's very different from what it was 6 months ago. Right. I am so, it's like, if I was going to say I found my purpose, I found my purpose. And in this case, I refound my purpose.
Yeah. And I would even say that you accepted your purpose.
I accept. Oh, tell me about that. Talk about that, lady.
Well, because you were in so much resistance around leaving the corporate, like the security of corporate gigs in the corporate world, to really stepping into a place of vulnerability and what your heart was calling for, you were not quite ready when we first started doing this podcast to accept what you were being told from the higher power, right? You were being called to action and you were in massive resistance. And then some chick came along with a spiritual 2x4, as you call it. It's like,
Ow.
right? And actually
I,
took me through the passion test and was like, hey, you have to trust it. And sometimes we just need that reminder, right? From someone else. You
mm,
have to trust, because you can tell me and I can tell you, but we don't always listen to ourselves about that. And so, right?
right. Sometimes, life feels like we're in the eye of a storm and we can't see past the eye wall. And sometimes it's really important to have the spotter plane on the outside of the storm say, hey, come this way to the calmer waters.
Yes. Oh, that's a great analogy.
Well,
And
thank you.
that's what
I made it up myself. Thank you very
I
much.
felt like that for you. I just knew, like the full body knowing that happens rarely for me, but I knew for you, you had to go. You're such a spiritual person. That is what you embody. And you were disjointed with the corporate work, in fact, because you weren't able to really give what your heart was calling to give in the world. And so once we took you through your passion test and we did this podcast for a bunch of months, and I kept throwing those little 2x4s at you, and all of the other experiences in your life and the people in your life encouraging you, your sister, your best friend, saying, yeah, why aren't you doing that?
Mm.
You accepted, yeah, that's right. This feels right. Everybody's encouraging me. Why aren't I doing this? I'm going to
Well,
do this.
and what I find really interesting about that is that when I left this work a long time ago, it was because my purpose wasn't being fulfilled. I felt like people were not hearing what I was teaching,
Mhm.
and that my personal story was a detriment to the purpose,
Mhm.
right? And so I left it, and then I decided, okay, I'm going to go into the corporate world, and I'm going to deliver on my purpose, but I'm going to deliver it in like a super secret spy way. I'm gonna like sneak it in messages that are changed in vocabulary. And when I came and I met you, and I always talk about the day I met you, because feeling that presence from you was really powerful for me, because when I had what was regressed, that was one of the first things that I talked about was you could feel Jeshua's presence. You could feel it, right? And I could feel it from you that day. And I was like, okay, something there, and then I never forgot it. I mean, it was years before we talked again.
Yeah.
Right. And even that day, whatever conversation you and I had, it was within the group about what we were doing.
Mhm.
Right. So it was never a connection that day. It was just like there. So, but I never forgot it. That's why I kept seeing your face on LinkedIn. I kept saying, well, there's that woman. There's that woman. And which think about that for as far as synchronicities are concerned. I mean, I kept seeing you, and now look at us here, rounding up on a year of Spirit Cafe podcasts. By the way, February 13th, people, live event. um, um, but I think it's really interesting. And I also look at you, and I've been watching you come out of your shell even more and more, and leaving the corporate world behind, and really kind of going off on a different tangent yourself. And what's really interesting is you're different than when I first met you all those years ago, because I felt you were a little suppressed there too in that environment.
Oh, for sure.
And so, but I think it's interesting that that environment does suppress you. But I think when I look at what you and I are both doing now, I mean, we both are out there, and our purpose is to help others find a joyful life and a loving life.
And I want to clarify for listeners that you don't have to be doing your purpose, right? In a
Right.
job or a career path. You can simply be your purpose. So one thing that I remember sort of struggling with when I accepted the full-time job in senior living, because prior to that, I had just started my business, and then I had just left my marriage. So starting over overseas, with the US being overseas, because I came from the UK, back and forth. Anyway, so I was starting over, and I was, struggling as a single mom of three. But I knew my purpose is to help people clarify and live the life they love. And so when this full-time job was offered to me, I was like, well, gosh, I don't know. I don't know. Is that my purpose? Or is actually making enough money to feed my kids the purpose?
Mm-hmm.
So I really had to feel that out. I had to feel my way through that. And what I came to know is that as long as I was still helping people find that light within themselves by reflecting my own, then I was living my purpose, no matter what environment I was in, right? No matter if I was working in senior living as an activities assistant, as a social work assistant, as an activities director, or if I was walking through the grocery store, we've talked about this before, right? Smiling at somebody so that they light up, right?
Right.
It really doesn't matter what you're doing. It matters how you're being.
Yep.
That's how we live our purpose.
I completely agree with you. I think a lot of people, especially empathic people, um, lose themselves for their purpose. They
Mm-hmm.
go out there and they say, I'm here to serve, but they always forget to serve themselves as well.
Oh, tell me more about that, John Dave.
What do you mean? um, um, I think it's interesting because I think there's a lot of people who do that. Now I do, I work very hard a few days a week, right? A few days a week, right? But I know right now there's also a thing in um, this is just the business world called timing.
Mhm.
When things are hitting, you have to hit things, the way they are, right? It's like right now I'm frantically writing my book because I know it's a timing thing on that book, right?
Oh, let's talk about frantically. But before
Yeah,
we do,
good
just a
catch. I
moment,
heard it when I
sorry.
said it. I totally heard it
Uh,
when I said it.
I feel like you're lacking clarity right now, and that is in your camera image, in fact, not in real life.
Oh, really? Yeah. My camera's acting very weird today. Well, last night, for some reason, my computer shut off and things were weird when I turned it on. So I'll
Maybe it
just
was
be.
God telling you to go to bed, John David.
Well, no. I wasn't on it when it shut off. It shut off when I was like probably in bed at the time. Um, so did you send me a chat to tell me that?
I did. I tried to be covert about it, but
Well, I'm blurry in general right now. Right. So we'll deal with me being blurry and people who are watching this on YouTube, I normally do look blurry. It's on the other episode on the episodes where I look clear. That's all CG.
this is John's spirit form coming through.
um, but for me, when I look, I am very, very clear about my purpose of being to spread that love and awaken people to their inner love and their inner feeling. But I also know, as a parent, my job is to grow a good human,
Yes.
right? And so like today, I'm recording a Spirit Cafe with one of my favorite people on earth, right? And then I'm getting off of this Spirit Cafe, and I'm going to pick up my son. And I have nothing else planned today and tomorrow
Mm-hmm.
because that's my son's and my day, right? And then Saturday, and don't get me wrong, he's 18, and there's a computer downstairs that looks like the cockpit of an airplane, right? Multiple screens, and I'll see him sometime in the next few days, right, somewhere, probably for meals, maybe. But those days are set aside to be that love for my son and to enjoy each other's company. We sword fight. We do all kinds of cool things in my house. We crack whips in the living room. It's kind of cool. um, But you have to, if your purpose is to spread love, you have to not only spread love to people externally, but to yourself and to your family and your children, especially.
Yes. Yes.
I know that I mean, you have carved your life out in such a way that you get to have real quality time with your children, and we only record Spirit Cafe every other week because you're with your kids, darn it.
Right. And
Yeah.
as I was telling you before we started actually, the podcast, I don't work that much when my kids are home. And I make sure that I have a lot of break times because one of my kids is virtual. So I take a break when she has a break so that we can play a game of Rummy Cube at 11 o'clock in the morning, or just sit and chat. And then once I try not to schedule anything after they're home from school, the other two, so that they can come in and give me a hug when they get home and we can have a little chat. I can check on them. And then if I have more work to do, I do more. But if somebody needs help with their homework, I'm there. If someone needs some emotional
Priority.
support, I'm there. Yes. And that was one thing that was definitely lacking for me when I was working the 9 to 5, is that I didn't have the flexibility to be there for my kids whenever they needed me. And that was a driving force for me, because part of my purpose is being a present parent.
Right. And that's huge, because that, if it goes back to that larger spiritual purpose, that is being loving and being caring and, taking responsibility for your charges,
Yeah.
which
And
is your
helping
children.
them find their light, right? I'm not just doing it for clients. If I
You're
say
living
all
it.
good stuff for people who are paying me, then I'm not being authentic, right? Which
Right.
again is a theme that we've talked about a lot. Like, it's so important to me to live authentically and in integrity. And that means I am living this purpose in every aspect of my life.
Right. Exactly. And it's the catchphrase that came out when I was on Kim Carey's interview was live loving, right? And I think it's a beautiful statement. Live loving, then you love living, because that's part of the process. You go out in the world and you spread your love. And I talk about what is your purpose? What is all of our purpose? Our purpose is, once again, spiritually, to be here to experience that love in a more broad way through our fears, anxieties, or whatever we go through. But the chosen purpose has to align with that, has to align with, I'm going back to that loving, that enjoyment, that fun. And I think that if you don't, here's where I think most people lose it. They think of purpose and they think so far in the future.
Mm-hmm.
They forget that living your purpose can only happen in one moment. And it can only happen in the only conscious moment where you have thought, word, and deed. You don't have it in the past. You don't have it in the future. You only have it now. So you have to go out in the world and you have to spread that love or work that purpose in the very present moment. Like, I know that for me, I want to awaken people, but I also know something you said earlier, which I thought was beautiful, was the idea of, being the light for others, right? It's not anybody's purpose to save the world.
Right.
Right. But if you want to save the world, make your part of the world, make your purpose, your part of the world beautiful, so that they
Yeah.
go, "Ooh, what's that? I want some of that." Yeah.
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 I love that so much. I was working with a client, and one of his top passions was to, be a humanitarian and make a difference in the world. And when we got to the point of doing his markers, which are the specific, like, what has happened when you're living that passion to a 10, he really was struggling because he was shooting so far forward in the future, right? And I said, well, what if you just scale it back? How can you be a humanitarian in your own community?
Right.
Can you go volunteer at a soup kitchen? That will make a difference in the world. What can you do in the small circle of influence that you currently have? What can you do now to step into that passion and live it to a 10 on this smaller scale, so that
Right.
then over time you're always stepping toward that bigger, grander dream. But we have to start where we're at, right?
Right. Exactly. And I often say, we get that big grand dream and it's way out there in front of us, but we never experience it in the future.
Right. Because
We
the
only
future
experience
is now once we're there.
right. So what I say is the mistake that people make is they think they have to get to something that's already coming to them.
Yes. Oh,
And
yes.
right, it's coming to them depending on what you do in the here and now.
Right.
So make the small present moment actions, and that giant purpose that you're looking for, that giant outcome that you're hoping to achieve in life, it's coming to you just by doing the small little things in the here and now. You know,
Mhm.
I like the analogy of being the bright light for people to spot you, right? And I actively, when I go, like I tell this in my on my YouTube channel, I talk about when I go to the grocery store, I go to the grocery store, and before I walk into the grocery store, I go and I smile, and I walk through the grocery store, feeling that presence of relaxed, easy, with a smile on my face.
Mhm.
And as I walk past people, I see them do a double take. They're not used to seeing a smile,
Mhm.
right? And then they go and they smile back,
Mhm.
right? The way you live your purpose affects the people around you, just like Tamara's owner walking into a room and I could feel her presence.
Mhm.
That's the same exact thing. Walking with that joy, that love, that purpose in life. And any purpose you have has to be married to enjoyment and love.
Mhm.
Because if you're marrying it to something hateful, you're going to live a miserable life, or something mean. It's
Yeah.
one of the things that when I talk about people who get so deep into organized religion, their purpose is external from themselves, and they end up judging and hating and all these things. And I'm like, that's not love,
No.
and that to me is, I had to throw my little spirituality thing in there, my little jab at religion in there. But what's your thought?
Well, I think that, yeah, religion, we specifically give religion a bad rap because uh, there's so much incongruence in it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I agree. People need to, tune their own compass and make sure that they're aware of how they're living. And, my wish for everyone is to live in integrity and to be kind and to be loving. But I will say that if you go back to that soul level purpose, sometimes someone's purpose might simply be to be contrast for those of us trying to live that loving life, right?
Right.
Contrast, and they may stay so stellar in that role that we feel like they're not living their purpose when in fact they might be, at a
Mm,
spiritual level, and it just doesn't look like it because they're not a kind, good human, right?
right, right.
So that's just another way to look at someone who is awful right, on a human level,
well,
but
well, they
maybe
definitely are
don't
showing you the
live their
contrast.
purpose. Yeah.
Well,
And so,
yeah, yeah, and that's interesting. And when I encounter those people, the first thing I think is, why are they so fearful?
mhm,
Why are they in that place? And then I try to make them laugh, and it becomes a game for me. I'm
yeah,
like, oh, I'm going to make them laugh, and I usually succeed. I can usually make them laugh. I can usually make them smile, and I can usually lighten their load for a brief second,
mhm,
right? And if I can lighten their load for a brief second, I've changed their day, right? I remember when I did the USO tours, and my purpose, I knew my purpose for going there. That's another thing. Purpose doesn't have to be lifelong. It can be,
right.
my purpose right now can be for this thing. And
That's
my
thank you
when
for
I
saying
did the USO tours, my purpose was to be the relief valve, because I know those guys were in such stress. I was my whole purpose was to give them a chance to relax from their anxiety, and that was why I wanted to go. And the best quote that I ever had was, I was in Ramadi, Iraq, and I had just performed a show in a motor pool, and it was a super secret show because they wouldn't tell, only the soldiers knew where the show was. They didn't let anybody else, and they kind of like all were told to come in different directions, so they couldn't tell they were gathering, because you become a target if you gather,
okay.
right? And so we finished the whole show. Soldier comes up and says, "Mr. Davis, thank you for coming. I wanted to tell you," he says, "this morning I was in a firefight, and this afternoon for 2 hours, I was able to forget all about that. Thank you so much." And that to me is huge. He was able to, for 2 hours, go, I wasn't shooting at people this morning. I
Yes,
mean, that's huge, you know.
that is very,
And
very huge.
I think that all of us have the ability to see those people in fear and anxiety
Mhm,
and meet them where they are and bring them to somewhere more loving.
mhm.
On my YouTube channel, it's amazing. I get such beautiful messages every day. I wish you could see my inbox. It's like filled with beautiful, loving messages. And then my comment section filled with beautiful, loving messages. And then every so often I get the person who wants to tell me that I'm Judas and a false prophet. And I get those things all the, occasionally, not all the time, but occasionally. And it's such an interesting experience because the first thing I say to them is I respect your beliefs. Because it's not my job to tell them what to believe,
Mhm,
right? And I shouldn't try to dictate because that's what religion does. It
mhm.
tries to dictate what you're supposed to believe. And so I go, no, I respect your beliefs. I just don't agree with you. Do you respect my beliefs? And then I never hear from them again. They go away, right? Because they don't respect my beliefs, but it's okay. By saying I respect their beliefs, they have nothing to press back on. And so
Right.
it shows them that I'm not going to aggressively fight their beliefs. And so in that, they have a chance to rest
Mhm.
a little bit because they're not going to have to get into a fight about it. Right.
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
interesting. The other thing that I find really interesting, and it ties into everything we've said so far, in all the messages and all the comments that I'm getting on my channel, the word resonate
Mhm.
shows up over and over and over. This
What does that
resonates. This resonates.
mean?
And what is resonation? Resonation is a vibration. It's a feeling, right? It's the feeling I got when I met you. It's the feeling I got when I met Joshua. It's the feel at resonation. It's the feeling that I tap into when I walk into that grocery store. It's a feeling. I think our purpose is for us to come into this life and facilitate that feeling in ourselves and others. And that
Right.
feeling, I think I really do believe that we are on the cusp of a new evolution of humanity. And I think that that will be a feeling, not a thinking,
Yes.
and the masculine and the feminine. And I think we're going into the feminine feeling side. And I don't look at that as gender. I use those terms because that is the broad terms we all use right now. But I believe you get into the thinking brain and you try to wrap information around something so simple, but it's so simple that words can't describe it. It's
Mhm.
it's that resonation, it's that feeling. And when people feel it, then they know that they can gravitate towards it. And I think that everybody in the world, their purpose really is to get to that feeling, that resonation.
Yeah, and because then they feel on purpose. And so I just want to, since this is part of what I do, share with our listeners, how can you tap into that? Well, one of the ways that you can tap into that on purpose feeling is to ask yourself, what lights me up? So what makes me come alive? And so in my classes and workshops, when I'm not doing a full passion test, I will ask them to simply complete the sentence, what lights me up, over and over and over for like a minute or two, and just see what comes up. And the more you do it, the more you'll open up to what your adult brain has shut down, right? So maybe it's being on stage as a ballerina lights me up, or did when you were little.
Like I used to be.
Like you, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
In tights. I know you were a man who wears tights.
Yeah. I didn't
So
wear a tutu though. I wore a 4-4. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
for that. So anyway, just ask yourself what lights you up, and that's where you start to uncover and discover and rediscover your purpose. And then of course, if you want more specific help, tamarazoner.com, I actually help people clarify what they want their life to look and feel like, because
And let me
that's
let me
one
just say this. I took the passion test with you, and very valuable. It really shows you where you are. It shows you what your purpose really is. Because a lot of times we get trapped into our head thinking about how do I live in this world? You know, how do I make money by staying in the corporate world far too long? um,
yeah,
and it really shows you what your real
yeah, and
desire is and your
helps you
purpose is.
it helps you get honest about what really matters to you, because
Right.
often we're doing a whole bunch of things during the day that don't have anything to do with what we care about.
Right. Right.
Right. And so if
And
we can get clear on what we really care about, and then we take action on those things each day, then life becomes more purposeful and more meaningful every single day. And that's what it's
right.
all about.
Yeah. I think it's so the test is so valuable, especially for someone who's questioning where they are. And this is not a giant sales pitch, people. I'm really telling you the truth. This is exactly what I believe about what Tamara's work is and her passion test. It is truthful, it is honest, it cuts through the crap, gets you right to the what you really are thinking, what you're really believing. I like it so much I gifted it to a friend. So you want to make sure that you don't take what we're saying as a sales pitch, because it really is a tool to use to get you to that next place and to clear yourself out.
Yeah. I've been
So
using this tool. I was certified 8 years ago this month, and I love this still as my
right.
favorite tool, as the one I want to share with everybody who crosses my path, because it's literally and radically transformed my life. And this is
Mhm.
why I'm this like bubbly, happy, light filled being that you all see today, because I live this work, and it's a joy. It's
And
just
one of
it.
the things that you said to me about your passion test, which I really appreciate, because I totally see this now, is your passions change.
Yes,
Your passions change. I know that if I was to take your passion test today, it would be different from what I said when we did it before,
absolutely.
because everything in my life is altered now.
Yeah, every time we go through a transition or life shifts, we make a new list, because now we have to again realign. And that doesn't mean you have to pay me every single time. But once you learn the process, you know how to
But you
just
should. But you should. No, I'm kidding.
right? Because I'm a lot of fun to work with too. But you make a new, I do my new list at minimum every year, and most often every 6 months,
Mm.
so that I'm making sure that I realign what matters the most to me as each season changes in my life, right?
Well, and it's funny because we end up having these societal expectations that we think are our purpose.
Mhm.
And do you know what I mean by that?
Say,
And pardon?
say more about it.
Um, well, it's like, you have your people think people who are single think they should be in a relationship. People who are poor think they should be, striving for more, constant money. And people, they have these societal expectations of themselves. And sometimes those societal expectations don't match you or your
Right.
purpose, right? I remember
Oh, I'm sorry. I just saw this thing on Facebook the other day, and it was exactly that. It was not everybody's meant to go up and up and up. Some people spread out and out and out and go
oh,
deeper, 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 right?
that's
Yeah.
why. That makes so much sense. You know why? Because never mind. I was going to make a really bad fat joke, but anyway, I keep spreading out and out and out. I'll
No.
blame it on that. Um, the thing that I forget where I was going at before.
Sorry.
I was on senility is kicking in. Anyway, so I was saying something, so I've forgotten what it was. So go ahead and let's get.
That was my whole point. But yeah, like some people are meant to climb the ladder, and others are more like dandelions, right? Which
Right.
dig their roots so deep and spread them so wide that you can't pull them off track, right? You can't get rid of a dandelion, honestly.
Right.
And it benefits the soil. So you should leave it there anyway.
Right.
But go ahead.
Yeah. What I was going to say before was I remember somebody asked me the other day about my past life and what was John's life like? What did he have a wife? Did he have children? Da, 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 da. And my memories were that once he met Jeshua, nothing else mattered
Mm.
except for Jeshua. And John never took a wife and never had children and did all that stuff. And I'm like, I think I understand it now why he would, because there was a different purpose, there was a different goal, different thing, and it wasn't important any longer. Right. And to me, that was really interesting. Not that I'm going to bring that into my life nowadays, but who knows? Well, where that will lead me. But right now, I have no desire in that direction at all, because I am so on purpose right now in a different way, and it's so different. And I think a lot of that societal expectation can muddy your purpose.
For sure. And I think that that's why we see so many people in their late 30s and 40s and 50s going, wait a second, what have I done with my life? I've lived someone else's expectations of me. Now I just want to figure out what I want to be doing. And so it's a midlife crisis is really a wake-up call. Right.
Right.
So I think that if we can start teaching our younger people, which is what I've been doing, right, teaching my work to in high schools now, is to let them know that they can live life a different way. They can actually create any way of being they want to. They don't have to live this pre-programmed, go to college, find a partner, buy the house, have the babies. You don't have to live that predefined life. You can do whatever the heck you want to, and what serves you and what serves the world in
Right.
the way that is unique to you.
Amen.
Amen.
Yeah. Well, that has been a lovely conversation about purpose. And I think that it was when we start these conversations, I love when we have a topic and we have no idea what we're about to say. I love those conversations, because I think we go into some real different directions than you might think we would go. And I think that, what I really liked about this conversation was the fact that we started out very much in alignment and then broadened it out and kind of expanded on it from different angles. And it was just lovely. So I think that today's episode served its purpose.
Don, would you like me to take us out of here now?
Take us out of here.
Oh, that was beautiful. All right, our friends, please share your thoughts on this episode. We'd love to hear from you what you feel is your purpose and what your thoughts were about what we think about purpose. We just love to have conversations with you. So enjoy your day, create yourself a beautiful day, week, life, and we will talk to you again next week.
Thank you for joining us at Spirit Cafe, a place where you can safely explore your spirituality without the guilt or dogma of religion. Leave all comments and suggestions on the Spirit Cafe podcast Facebook page.